Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Desserteau. That was very kind of you. I was in my tears. I was in tears when I was listening to you. A lot of surprises today, of course, pleasant surprise. I'd like to begin by thanking Dean Cole, Professor Barkley, for your leadership in religious freedom and recognizing the atrocities being committed against the Uyghur people. And thank you so much for lending your voice. It's profoundly, profoundly appreciative of your providing me this platform and recognizing the suffering of my people in the hands of the Chinese Communist government. I'm honored to be selected as the first to receive this recognition by esteemed peers at the Notre Dame Law School. No law school in the country has done anything this significant publicly. Thank you so much. The value of religious freedom as integral to human rights has never been more vital to highlight than at present time. This award represents the important acknowledgement of the problem that must be confronted, and one that should not have taken decades and genocide to be recognized. It is an acknowledgement that the Uyghur people have already paid an enormous price for international community's inadequate determination to confront the authoritarianism. This is shown by the ongoing Uyghur genocide, which has now reached devastating milestone, its 5th year. Long before the internet sleuths found signs of newly built Nazi-style concentration camps and prisons popping up on satellite images, ordinary Uyghurs have already started to feel that the walls are closing in. We heard whispers of roundups that left entire neighborhood deserted. Starting in 2017, the Uyghurs abroad get phone calls from our loved ones saying to us, "Don't call us again." Leaked government documents published in 2019 by the New York Times revealed that the Chinese leader Xi Jinping personally ordered that organs of dictatorship should show, quote, "absolutely no mercy," unquote. Top official in Xinjiang, Chen Quanguo by the name, instructed security officials to, quote, "round up everyone who should be rounded up," unquote. Documents reveal 20,000 people in just 10 days in one county alone been taken into the camps. With the strong echoes of the darkest period of modern history, intellectuals, professionals, religious leaders were the first to disappear. The Uyghur homeland now is a hell on earth. The Chinese government, according to the US government estimate, have rounded up 2 to 3 million Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in industrial-scale concentration camps. Let me note this. This is the largest roundup an ethno-religious group since the Holocaust. The repeat of the worst stains of history, lessons that we dedicate immense resources studying and supposedly preventing. Contrary to the claims that these are re-education facilities, detainees suffer torture, rape, food and water deprivation, and constant political indoctrination. They are repeatedly forced to deny God and pledge loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party in punishing thought transformation program that uses extreme duress to carry out human re-engineering. Many formerly healthy individuals have died in camps and shortly after release. Our hearts and minds reverberate the death of one. It seems unfathomable to feel this tragedy played out thousands upon times. One of the jarring and heart-wrenching aspects of the CCP atrocities involves deliberate destruction of Uyghur families. Let me tell you 2 of those significant stories that we've been reading in the news. Abdurrahman Tohti, a Uyghur living in Turkey, lost contact with his family as the genocide accelerated. Then he came across a video on social media showing his son being quizzed by a Chinese instructor. And he was asked, "What is the name of the fatherland? What is on the national flag?" And the boy, this poor boy, was struggling and worried about even possibly answering wrong, giving a wrong answer, shouts the answers in Chinese, repeating the Chinese Communist Party propaganda. BBC recently reported a story of another Uyghur, a refugee in Turkey by the name Kalbinur, a Uyghur woman who fled Turkey with one of her children, expecting her husband to bring their other children once they were issued passports. Then her husband was detained, and she lost contact with her entire family. Eventually, she also come across a TikTok video. One of her daughters, her daughters with a head shaved, and in a state-run facility far away from her hometown. Minimum estimates point to at least 800,000 Uyghur children forcibly separated from their families in these horrific circumstances. The Chinese government turning Uyghur children into Chinese children by force in state-run orphanages. It is also enforcing forced abortion, forced sterilization at a scale resulting in staggering 60% drop in the birth rate in just 2 years. Humiliation, dehumanization continue, even for those not already taken away to the camps. Cadres repeatedly, at least 1 million of them have been assigned to go into Uyghur homes, even sleep in their beds, and eat on their dining table uninvited. They report any sign of religious practices to the authorities. In some instances, those poor family members ended up in the concentration camps. State policy is also stopping the formation of new families, as Uyghurs of marriageable age are locked in prison camps or forced labor factories. Policies also incentivize ethnic Chinese men to marry Uyghur women. No Uyghur woman can say no for fear of her family will be labeled as, quote, extremist, who resist to so-called ethnic harmony. China is also profiting from Uyghur slave labor. The Uyghurs are forced to pick cotton and work in factories, including polysilicon production and the solar panel supply chain. And many of those products are exported to the West, including the United States. Today, the United States remains to be the largest destination for Xinjiang-produced products. How is the Chinese regime is justifying this? Of course, the official claim is that they're fighting extremism and terrorism, which would mean that there are millions of terrorists in communist China today. Essentially, the Chinese regime is telling the world that it has tackled the so-called terrorism by locking up Uyghur intellectuals, poets, doctors, writers, athletes, farmers, business leaders, and religious scholars. The CCP has used Uyghurs' predominantly Muslim identity as a pretext for genocide. The role of high-tech and artificial intelligence in this cannot be underestimated or understated. As we speak, China is the only country that is using artificial intelligence for racial profiling. The Uyghurs' phones are monitored for foreign apps, references to the religion, or any contact abroad, and the results are cross-checked with QR codes outside Uyghur homes. The implications of this rapidly built digital authoritarianism are frightening. As we speak, there are more than 80 countries have adopted Chinese surveillance technology. That is a threat to religious liberty. The Chinese Communist Party's extreme hostility to religious faith is not in doubt. Islam has been labeled as mental illness by the Chinese officials who have declared that Quran and the Bible must be rewritten to reflect socialistic characteristics. Religion itself is an enormous threat to the Chinese Communist Party because it undermines regime's hold on power. Abrahamic faiths are viewed as hostile Western influence. The very idea of faith and conscience and freedom to use one's mind and heart to make independent choice is antithetical to the Chinese Communist Party ideology. Following a desire to secure its position, the CCP targets all followers of higher power. The CCP intends to wipe out or transform those who are loyal to their creator or conscience, but not the party. Normalization of attacks on religion, genocide, and the use of surveillance technology to carry out should be frighten us. These technologies will be replicated to target other vulnerable faith groups around the world. if China can do this, why not any other authoritarian country for whom people of faith pose an obstacle? Pope John Paul the Great said that faith and reason are like two wings on which the human spirit rises to contemplation of truth. And God has placed in the human heart a desire to know the truth. In a word, to know himself. The CCP has set itself against the very nature of God, human nature, and freedom of belief and thought. This is a battle for freedom that we are not equipped to fight unless we acknowledge our own ties to the problem. For decades, the United States has operated under the naive belief that the Chinese Communist Party would reform over time. Even as the CCP has expanded its brutal crackdown on people of faith, the West has carried out business as usual. As we speak, in Washington, a U.S. Chamber of Commerce has been fighting or lobbying against the Forced Labor Prevention Act that has bipartisan support. In pursuit of economic opportunities, millions of innocent people have been sacrificed, and freedom in our world itself is at risk. Our complicity in human rights abuses is likewise destroying our own soul and spirit. China's state violence against the Uyghurs demands a response from the entire world, not only from the United States. I find some optimism in dark time by trusting that eternal truth can prevail if people will fight for them. Interfaith solidarity is vital in this effort. The Uyghurs found continued strength from it. The Jewish communities have mobilized across the US and Europe to ensure that never again means something. Christians are also joining in growing action. Southern Baptist Convention just this past month passed a unanimous resolution condemning the genocide, overcoming a cultural distance from Islam by rooting their concern in a biblically mandated love for their neighbor. It is truly a wonderful thing that someone like myself, a Muslim from a humble beginning in a city of Kashgar, receiving this honor at a Catholic university. This says everything, not about who I am, but rather about the fundamental character of our nation. Since my arrival here in 1995, I have only been able to spend a few months with my parents. I have not seen my mother since 2004, when my parents attended my law school graduation in Washington. I last saw my father for a few days in Turkey in late 2014. Now the Chinese authorities won't allow my elderly parents to travel to the United States to spend the rest of their time in this world. They have 5 US-born grandchildren, and they have only met one of them. I believe I may never see my parents again in this world. Moments like today, bring a glimpse of hope for me and my hopeless people in communist China. I have been advocated for the rights and dignity of Uyghur people for more than 2 decades. In my current capacity as the official of a U.S. government agency dedicated to religious freedom for all people, I can attest that when attacks on religious freedom are normalized, it will only lead to further darkness sweeping across the world. The greatest stains on history are not perpetrated by few evil individuals like Xi Jinping, but are permitted by the silence of many who did not shoulder the mandate of their conscience to intervene. May we ever seek to preserve one of the most valuable freedom we have. If my words to have served to move you at all today, I implore you, do not turn away from this moral responsibility. Thank you for the opportunity to urge you to action, and may future generations bear witness to the faithful pursuit of this task. Thank you very much again, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you.